The great hall of the Galactic Assembly stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Giant pillars of white stone rose toward a ceiling made of living crystal that shifted colors with the mood of the room. Today, that crystal glowed a cold blue, reflecting the attitude of the 12 alien species who had gathered to hear humanity speak. Ambassador Daniel stood at the central platform, feeling very small. Around him, seated in elevated rings that climbed toward the ceiling, were beings that looked nothing like him. Some had scales, others had shells or wings or too many eyes. The delegation towered above the rest, their bodies clicking and shifting as they watched the human with obvious boredom. Captain Laura stood behind the ambassador, her hands clasped behind her back. She wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic fleet, and her eyes moved across the crowd without stopping. She had commanded starships through dangerous missions, but nothing had prepared her for the weight of so many alien gazes. Ambassador cleared his throat and began his speech. He spoke of humanity's journey from Earth to the stars. He described how humans had built their first faster-than-light engines only 70 years ago and had since established 3 colony worlds. He talked about their peaceful intentions and their desire to join the Galactic Confederation as equal partners. The crystal ceiling flickered with traces of yellow amusement. High Arbiter rose from his seat. He was the leader of the Dominion and the most powerful voice on the council. His body stood 9 feet tall, covered in black armor that was part of his natural form. His 4 arms folded across his chest as he looked down at the human ambassador. "You speak of achievements," said. His voice was deep and carried easily through the hall. "But what exactly has humanity achieved? You have colonized 3 worlds in 70 years. The colonized 300 in the same span of time after we discovered space travel." A sound like laughter rippled through the chamber, kept his expression calm, though could see his jaw tighten. "You speak of technology," continued, "but your ships are slow, your weapons are weak, your shields would barely survive a single volley from any proper warship in this chamber." Another spoke up. This was a being made of living crystal whose body caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns. "Perhaps we should discuss the physical qualities of humans themselves. I have studied your species. You have no natural armor. Your claws are useless. Your teeth cannot pierce anything tougher than cooked meat. You require sleep for 1/3 of every day," added a scaled delegate from the Republic. 1/3 of your existence is spent unconscious and helpless." "You are tragically short," said another voice. "Most of you die before reaching even 100 years. What wisdom can such brief creatures accumulate?" The hall filled with sounds of agreement. Some delegates did not bother to hide their amusement. A few made gestures that did not recognize but understood perfectly well. High Arbiter raised one of his 4 arms for silence. The hall went quiet. "Let me speak plainly," he said. "Humanity is asking to join a confederation of powerful species. You wish to sit among empires that have existed for thousands of years. You want to be treated as equals by civilizations that have conquered physics itself." He paused and let his dark eyes settle on. "But you are not equals. You are fragile. You are weak. You are temporary. Admitting humanity to this council would be like admitting children to a gathering of warriors." Opened his mouth to respond, but was not finished. "There is no cruelty in this truth. It simply is what it is. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, if your species survives, you might develop into something worthy of membership. But today you are nothing more than soft creatures from a dangerous world who somehow stumbled into space before you were ready." The High Arbiter turned to address the full council. "I call for a vote, all in favor of denying humanity's petition for membership." Lights appeared above each delegation section. Every single light glowed red. Not one species voted in humanity's favor. "Turn back to. The vote is unanimous. Your petition is. You may leave." Ambassador gave a small bow. His face showed nothing of what he felt inside. He turned and walked toward the exit, with Captain following close behind. As they passed through the massive doors, heard more sounds of alien laughter echoing behind them. They walked in silence through the station's corridors until they reached a private section. Only then did allow his shoulders to drop. "That could have gone better," he said quietly. Shook her head. "They were never going to accept us. Not today. They made up their minds before we even spoke." "Perhaps, but I had hoped that at least one species would see past their prejudice." Looked back toward the distant hall. "They think weakness is about bodies and weapons and ships. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we are pushed." She turned to face. "Someday they will learn, and when that day comes, they will wish they had treated us differently." Managed a small smile. "You sound very certain." "I am." Before either of them could say more, an alarm began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed along the corridors. Announcements in a dozen alien languages filled the air. A screen nearby activated, showing a news broadcast. Stepped closer to read the translation that appeared below the alien text. "Unknown fleet detected," she read aloud. "Massive in scale, approaching Confederation space from the outer rim." She looked at. "They are calling it the largest hostile force seen in 300 years. Frowned the swarm. "I thought they were extinct." "Apparently not." They watched as more information appeared on the screen. The fleet numbered in the thousands. It was moving fast and destroying everything in its path. The projected course would take it straight through Confederation territory. Felt something cold settle in her stomach as she traced the path with her eyes. "Daniel," she said softly, "look at where they are heading." Leaned closer, his face went pale. The fleet was heading directly toward New Canton, a human colony world with 60,000 civilians, and it lay on the very edge of Confederation space, far from any alien fleet that might help defend it. Straightened her uniform and turned toward the docking bay, where the horizon waited. "We need to contact Earth," she said, "right now." Behind them, the alien laughter had stopped, but knew that it would not matter. The Confederation had made its feelings about humanity very clear. If the swarm came for human lives, humanity would have to defend itself alone. And that was exactly what they would do. Admiral Cole stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching holographic displays that showed the movement of fleets across half the galaxy. She was a woman of 53 years with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Right now, those eyes were fixed on a single red dot moving through the display. "The swarm." "How long until they reach New Canton?" she asked. Lieutenant Commander Tran looked up from his console. He was young for his rank, only 32, but his mind worked faster than anyone else in the fleet when it came to tactical calculations. At their current speed, 72 hours, maybe less if they push harder. Cole nodded slowly, and the Confederation. "Running." Tran could not hide the disgust in his voice. "They have pulled back every ship from the border sectors. They are evacuating their colonies. They have not even responded to our communications. So they are leaving New Canton to die." "Yes, Admiral, that is exactly what they are doing." Cole turned to look at the main screen, where a blue dot represented the colony world. 60,000 people lived there. Farmers, engineers, teachers, children. They had gone to New Canton to build new lives far from Earth, never imagining that they would find themselves in the path of a galactic nightmare. "Get me Governor on a secure channel," Cole ordered. A few moments later, the face of appeared on the screen. He was a heavy man with kind eyes that now showed deep worry. Behind him, Cole could see the chaos of a planetary command center in crisis. "Admiral Cole," said, "please tell me you have good news." "I wish I could, Governor. The Confederation has refused to help." Closed his eyes for a moment. "I suspected as much. They told us directly that human colonies are not their concern." He opened his eyes again. "What about Earth?" Cole straightened her shoulders. I am mobilizing every available ship. We will be there within 60 hours. That only gives you 12 hours before the swarm arrives. I know. Admiral, I need to ask you something honestly. Can you stop them? The reports say there are over 3,000 ships. How many can you bring? Cole did not hesitate. 200. The silence that followed was heavy. His face showed the mathematical reality that he was calculating in his head. 3,000 against 200. Those were not odds. Those were a death sentence. Then why come at all? Asked softly. Why throw away your ships and your people when the numbers make victory impossible? Cole leaned closer to the screen. Because there are 60,000 human beings on your world, Governor. Because some of them are children who have never even seen Earth. Because we do not abandon our own, no matter what the odds say. His eyes glistened. Admiral, I do not know what to say. Say that you will have your people ready to evacuate. We will buy you as much time as we can. We will be ready. The connection ended. Cole turned back to her command staff. Send the order. All ships capable of faster-than-light travel are to assemble at Rally Point 7 within 6 hours. Full combat readiness. Officers moved quickly to carry out her commands. Cole walked to the main viewport and looked out at the stars. Tran appeared beside her. Admiral, permission to speak freely. Go ahead. They are still monitoring our communications. Shipmaster sent a message an hour ago. He called our rescue attempt foolish and suggested that we accept our losses like sensible beings. Cole's jaw tightened. And what did you tell him? I told him that humans are not sensible beings. I told him that we are stubborn and emotional, and that we would rather die fighting than live knowing. We abandoned innocent people to save ourselves. What did he say to that? Tran smiled slightly. He said that explains why our species will not last another century. Cole turned away from the viewport. He is wrong. Our willingness to fight for each other is exactly why we have survived everything that the universe has thrown at us. It is why we climbed out of caves and crossed oceans and reached for the stars. She looked at Tran with fierce certainty. It is why we will still be here long after they have forgotten what it means to care about anything beyond themselves. 6 hours later, the fleet assembled. 200 ships of various sizes hung in formation around the station. They were not beautiful ships, not by Confederation standards. They were practical vessels built by a species that had learned to fight for everything they had. Cole stood on the bridge of the carrier Liberty, now serving as her flagship. The faces of her captains appeared on screens around her, each one waiting for her words. You all know why we are here, she began. In 60 hours, the swarm will reach New Canton. The Confederation has abandoned that colony because they do not think human lives are worth saving, but we know differently. She paused, looking at each face in turn. We are outnumbered. By every logical measure, this mission should fail. But I want you to remember something. Humans have never let logic decide what we can achieve. We have built civilizations in deserts and on frozen ice. We have survived plagues and wars and disasters that should have ended us. We are still here because we refuse to give up on each other. The faces watching her showed no fear, only determination. We will not save everyone. We may not even survive. But we will fight, and we will give those 60,000 people every possible chance to live. That is what we do. That is who we are. She raised her hand. All ships engage faster-than-light drives. Set course for New Canton. We have a colony to save. The stars stretched into lines of light as 200 human ships vanished into the darkness between worlds. Behind them, watching from sensor stations scattered across the sector, alien observers noted the movement with confusion and contempt. Shipmaster of the border fleet recorded his observations in his log. The humans are proceeding with their rescue attempt. This will be useful data for studying irrational behavior in primitive species. I estimate complete destruction of their fleet within 3 hours of engagement." He filed the report and returned to his own retreat toward safer space. He did not understand what he was watching. None of them did. Not yet. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in a flash of blue light above New Canton. Below them, the colony world turned slowly, its surface covered with green forests and blue oceans that looked painfully similar to Earth. Cities dotted the continents, small settlements where humans had built homes and schools and hospitals far from there. Admiral Cole looked at the planet through the bridge viewport. Somewhere down there, 60,000 people were waiting to learn if they would live or die. "Time until arrival?" she asked. Lieutenant Commander Tran checked his display. 18 hours, Admiral. They accelerated during the night. "Then we work fast. Begin evacuation protocols. I want every transport we have moving civilians to the fleet within the hour." The next several hours became a blur of organized chaos. Transport ships descended to the surface, while evacuation orders went out across the planet. Families gathered their children and whatever belongings they could carry. Lines formed at landing zones in every major city. Governor coordinated from the ground, his voice calm despite the fear that everyone felt. He assigned priorities based on need: children first, then the elderly and sick, then everyone else. On the surface, Sargent led teams of ground forces to maintain order and protect the evacuation zones. She was a small woman with dark hair and quick movements, but her voice carried authority that made people listen. She had grown up in a rough neighborhood on Earth before joining the military, and she knew how to keep people calm when everything seemed hopeless. "Keep the lines moving," she ordered her soldiers. "No pushing. Everyone will get their turn." A young mother approached her, holding a baby and leading a small boy by the hand. "Sergeant, please. My children need to get on the next transport, please." Knelt down to look at the boy who was crying silently, she smiled at him. "What is your name?" "Tommy," the boy whispered. "Well, Tommy, you see that big ship over there? That is going to take you and your mom somewhere safe. Can you be brave for me and help your mom get on board?" The boy nodded, wiping his eyes. Stood and guided the family toward the front of the line. "Let them through," she told her soldiers. "Children first, always." Above the planet, Captain Laura commanded the horizon from her position in the defensive formation. She had volunteered for combat duty the moment she heard about the mission. The diplomatic vessel had been fitted with weapons before leaving Earth, transforming it from a ship of peace into a ship of war. "Admiral Cole," reported over the fleet channel, "we have completed the first evacuation wave. 8,000 civilians are aboard the transports and heading for safe space." "Good work, Captain. Keep them coming." The hours passed. Transport after transport lifted off from New Canton, carrying families to safety. But the math was brutal. Even working at maximum speed, they could only evacuate so many people before the swarm arrived. Then the sensors detected the first ships emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. "Contact," Tran announced, his voice tight. "Advance force, 100 ships." Cole studied the display. "They are testing us, feeling out our defenses before the main fleet arrives." "The main fleet is 4 hours behind them." "Then we have 4 hours to bloody their nose." The battle began with a burst of weapons fire that lit up the darkness of space. Human ships moved into defensive positions, their shields absorbing the first impacts while their weapons returned fire. The advance force pushed hard, trying to break through to the evacuation transports. Cole watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. They fought without fear or hesitation. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, each one part of a hive mind that controlled them all. They did not retreat. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked. "Destroyer Group 7 moved to intercept that flanking force," Cole ordered. "Do not let them reach the transports." 3 human destroyers broke formation and charged toward a cluster of ships that had slipped around the main engagement. Energy weapons flashed between them as they closed the distance. One destroyer took a direct hit and began venting atmosphere, but it kept firing, kept moving, kept fighting until the last in that cluster was destroyed. Only then did it fall silent, drifting away from the battle with its crew still inside. Watched from the horizon as the sacrifice unfolded. 32 people had died to protect a transport carrying 800 civilians. She did not know their names yet, but she would learn them. She would remember them. "Captain," came a voice over her communications system. "This is Transport 7. We are loaded and ready for departure, but there is a ship moving to intercept." Looked at her tactical display. The transport was carrying 8,000 people, mostly children from the coastal cities. A single cruiser had broken through the defensive line and was closing fast. "Understood, Transport 7. Change course to heading 37 Mark II. I will deal with the cruiser." She turned to her helmsman. "Take us in, maximum speed." The horizon surged forward, putting itself directly between the transport and the ship. Gripped her command chair as weapons fire slammed into her shields. Warning alarms filled the bridge. "Return fire, everything we have." The horizon was not built for this kind of fight but did not care. She poured every weapon into the cruiser while her ship took hit after hit. Smoke filled the bridge. Consoles exploded. Crew members fell. But the transport escaped. 8,000 children flew towards safety while the horizon held the line. When the cruiser finally exploded, allowed herself one moment of relief before turning her damaged ship back toward the main battle. On the surface, looked up at the sky and saw flashes of light where the battle raged. She had no idea which flashes were human ships dying and which were victories. All she knew was that people up there were giving their lives so that she could keep loading civilians onto transports. She turned back to her work. "Next group," she called out. "Let us go, keep moving." The evacuation continued. The battle continued. And somewhere in the darkness beyond New Canton, 3,000 ships were closing in, ready to finish what the advance force had started. Admiral Cole looked at her status display. She had lost 20 ships in the first engagement, 20 crews, 20 families that would never see their loved ones again. But 40,000 civilians had been evacuated. 20,000 remained on the surface. And the main fleet was 3 hours away. Cole closed her eyes for one moment, gathering her strength. Then she opened them and began issuing new orders. The battle was far from over. The main fleet arrived like a wave of death. 3,000 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel and immediately began their assault. The darkness of space filled with weapons fire so thick that it looked like a storm of light. Admiral Cole stood on the bridge of the Liberty, her hands gripping the railing as her ship shook from impact after impact. Around her, the remaining 180 human ships fought with everything they had. "Carrier Group, maintain formation around the evacuation corridor," she ordered. "Destroyer wings, keep rotating. Do not let them establish firing solutions on the transports." Lieutenant Commander Tran worked frantically at his console, feeding targeting data to the fleet. His voice remained steady even as the numbers on his display grew worse by the minute. "Admiral, we have lost 43 ships. They are adapting to our tactics. They are learning our patterns." "Then we change patterns. Signal all ships to switch to random engagement protocols. Make them chase us." The human fleet shifted into chaos, each ship moving independently while still protecting the precious evacuation corridor. It was a dangerous strategy that relied on the skill of individual captains rather than coordinated movements. But it worked. The hive mind struggled to predict where human ships would go next. Far away, on the neutral station of Prime, the Galactic Council watched the battle unfold through long-range sensors. High Arbiter stood before the main display, his four arms crossed as he observed the destruction. "Fascinating," he said to no one in particular. "They continue to fight even though victory is mathematically impossible. This is a significant waste of resources." Floated nearby, her crystalline body catching the light from the display. She had not spoken much since the battle began, but her attention had never left the screen. "They have been fighting for 18 hours, she said quietly. 18 hours without rest. Their bodies require sleep, yet they continue." Made a dismissive gesture. "Adrenaline and desperation. Their bodies will fail soon enough." "Will they?" Moved closer to the display. "Look at this. Every time a human ship is destroyed, the others fight harder. Their fleet has killed nearly 400 vessels. That is more damage than the last 3 species combined inflicted before they were overrun. And they have lost over half their own fleet. The exchange rate favors the..." "Does it? The started with 3,000 ships. They now have 2,600. The humans started with 200. They now have 90. Yet the humans have evacuated 48,000 civilians from the surface." Turn to face. "When was the last time you saw a species successfully evacuate anyone from attack zone?" Had no answer. On the surface of New Canton, Sargent had not slept in 20 hours. Her eyes burned and her muscles ached, but she kept moving through the evacuation zone, directing civilians and soldiers alike. 12,000 people remained on the planet. The last transports were loading now. "Sergeant," one of her soldiers called out, "we have movement in the eastern sector, landing pods." Grabbed her weapon and ran toward the sound of explosions. They had started landing ground forces, trying to disrupt the evacuation from the surface. She found her soldiers already engaged in combat with creatures that looked like nightmares made flesh. The ground forces were fast and strong, with natural armor and claws that could tear through steel. But soldiers held their positions with determination that bordered on madness. "Hold the line," shouted. "Do not let them reach the evacuation zone." A warrior charged directly at her. She fired 3 shots into its chest, slowing it but not stopping it. The creature swung its clawed arm at her head. She ducked, rolled, and fired again, this time hitting the weak point where its neck met its body. The creature fell. Another took its place, kept fighting. Above the planet, Admiral Cole received word that her flagship had taken critical damage. Fire had spread through 3 decks, and the main reactor was failing. Her officers begged her to abandon ship. "Transfer command to the cruiser Defiant," she ordered. "I will continue to coordinate from there." She made her way through smoke-filled corridors to an escape pod, then crossed the short distance to the Defiant through a hail of weapons fire. Within minutes of boarding, she was back at work, issuing orders as if nothing had happened. Tran joined her on the new bridge. "Admiral, they have broken through our defensive line in 2 places. We cannot hold them back much longer." Cole nodded. She had known this moment would come. "How many civilians remain on the surface?" 8,000. The last transports are loading now." "Then we hold for as long as it takes." She opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Cole. We have 8,000 people counting on us. I know you are tired. I know you are hurting. But we do not stop. We do not quit. We fight until every last person is off that planet." The response came back from dozens of voices, each one exhausted but unbroken. "Yes, Admiral." Then something unexpected happened. 12 new contacts appeared on the sensor display, emerging from faster-than-light travel behind the human fleet. For a terrible moment, Cole thought they had brought reinforcements. But these ships were not. They were Confederation vessels. 6 cruisers and 6 ships from smaller member species, all of them flying toward the battle with weapons charging. "This is of the Collective," came a voice over the communication system. "We are here to assist in the defense of New Canton." Cole stared at the display, unable to believe what she was seeing. I thought the Confederation voted to abandon this colony. The Council made a mistake. Some of us have chosen to correct it. Tran leaned close to Cole. Admiral, look at the fleet. They have stopped advancing. He was right. The ships had paused their attack, their hive mind processing this new information. They had never seen multiple species fight together against them. They had never encountered an alliance that formed in the middle of a battle. For the first time in the engagement, this seemed uncertain. Cole smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. Welcome to the fight. Let us show these creatures what happens when they threaten innocent lives. The combined fleet surged forward together, human and alien ships fighting side by side for the first time in history. And in the depths of space, the hive mind began to recalculate. Something had changed. Something they had not anticipated. These prey were different. The arrival of the Confederation ships changed everything. Not because 12 vessels could turn the tide against thousands, but because of what their presence meant. For the first time in recorded history, different species had chosen to fight alongside each other rather than flee. Admiral Cole coordinated the combined fleet with a skill that surprised even the alien captains. She positioned the cruisers where their powerful shields could protect the damaged human ships. She used the smaller alien vessels to fill gaps in the defensive line. She turned chaos into order with nothing more than her voice and her will. Lieutenant Commander Tran watched his tactical display as the battle shifted. Admiral, they are not pressing their attack. They seem confused. Good, let us keep them that way. Cole opened a channel to all ships. All units begin pushing forward slowly, make them give ground. The combined fleet moved as one, driving toward the line. The alien ships held their positions at first, but as the minutes passed, they began to fall back. One ship, then 5, then 20. The hive mind was struggling to understand what was happening. Their entire strategy had been built on a simple truth. Prey species did not fight back. They ran. They hid. They accepted death. But these creatures were doing something they had never seen before. They were protecting each other. They were dying for each other. They were refusing to abandon their weakest members even when logic demanded it. The hive mind could not calculate against irrationality. On the surface, Sergeant heard cheers erupt from the evacuation zone. She looked up to see the last transport lifting off, carrying the final 3,000 civilians to safety. 20 hours of fighting, 20 hours of holding the line, and they had done it. Not a single civilian under her protection had been lost. Her legs gave out beneath her. She sat down hard on the scorched ground, her weapon still clutched in her hands. Around her, soldiers who had fought without rest slumped against walls and vehicles, too tired to speak. Sergeant, one of her soldiers said weakly, "We did it." Looked at the sky where the transport was disappearing into the clouds. "Yeah, we did." In orbit, the battle was ending. The fleet had begun a full retreat, their ships accelerating away from New Canton toward the darkness between stars. As they fled, a single transmission reached the human fleet. It was brief and cold. "These prey are unprofitable. This system is abandoned." Admiral Cole read the message twice before allowing herself to believe it. They were leaving, not just New Canton, but all of Confederation space. They had decided that fighting species who refused to give up was not worth the cost. Captain brought the damaged Horizon alongside the Defiant. Her ship was barely holding together, its hull with blast marks and its crew exhausted beyond measure, but was smiling as her face appeared on Cole's display. "Admiral, all evacuation transports have reached safe space. 60,000 civilians, every single one." Cole closed her eyes. "Thank you, Captain, thank all of you." The celebration that followed was quiet. There was no cheering or shouting. There was simply relief, profound and overwhelming, washing over every human in the fleet. They had done the impossible. They had saved their people. 3 days later, Ambassador Daniel stood once again in the great hall of the Galactic Assembly. The crystal ceiling glowed with colors that were harder to read than before. Uncertainty, curiosity, perhaps even respect. High Arbiter was present, though he sat in silence rather than speaking. Had taken the central position, her crystalline body shining as she addressed the gathered delegates. We are here to reconsider humanity's petition for membership in the Galactic Confederation, she announced. In light of recent events, I believe a new vote is appropriate. What recent events? Demanded a delegate. The humans lost over half their fleet. That is hardly a victory. Turn to face him. They lost half their fleet, saving 60,000 lives that we had written off as acceptable losses. They fought for 18 hours without rest. They accepted our help when we offered it and integrated our ships into their fleet within minutes. And they drove off the swarm, a threat that has destroyed civilizations far older than humanity. She paused to let her words settle. I watched that battle. I saw human ships sacrifice themselves to protect transports full of children. I saw their soldiers stand against warriors on the ground rather than retreat. I saw their admiral transfer command 3 times as her ships were destroyed beneath her, never once considering surrender. Looked around the hall. Tell me, how many of our species would do the same? No one answered. I formally propose that humanity be admitted to the Galactic Confederation as a full military partner, not a protected member. They have earned this with blood and sacrifice. The vote was not unanimous this time, but it passed. Humanity was in. After the ceremony, approached Ambassador in a private corridor. The High Arbiter's expression was difficult to read, but his voice carried something it had not before: humility. I was wrong about your species, said. I judged you by your bodies and your technology. I did not understand what truly makes a species strong. Nodded slowly. Our bodies are weak, our lives are short, but those things do not define us. Then what does? Thought about the battle. He thought about Admiral Cole and her fleet. He thought about Sergeant and her soldiers. He thought about Captain flying her damaged ship into danger to save children she had never met. We do not give up on each other, said simply. When one of us falls, we carry them. When our people are in danger, we run toward the fire, not away from it. We love deeply and we fight fiercely for those we love. He met's eyes. That is our true power, not weapons, not ships, our hearts. Was silent for a long moment. Then he bowed, a gesture of respect that had never expected to see. Perhaps we have more to learn from humans than I realized. Later, on the observation deck of the Horizon, Captain stood alone, looking out at the stars. The ship was still damaged, but it was heading home. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Ambassador joined her at the viewport. Quite a week. Smiled. You could say that. Do you think they truly understand us now, the aliens? Considered the question. Some of them does, maybe a few others. She shook her head. But it does not matter if they understand us. What matters is that we understand ourselves. And what do we understand? Looked out at the distant stars, each one a sun with worlds of its own, worlds full of mysteries and dangers and wonders that humanity had only begun to explore. We understand that our weakness is our strength. We sleep because we dream. We die because we live fully. We fight because we love. She turned to face. The galaxy thought we were small and fragile and temporary, but we showed them what humans are made of. Nodded. We did. Somewhere far away, on a dozen different worlds, the story of the Battle of New Canton was being told. Species that had mocked humanity were now speaking of them with wonder. Children of 100 races were hearing for the first time about the soft creatures from Earth who had stood against impossible odds and refused to surrender. Humanity had come to the stars looking for a place among the great civilizations. They had found something better. They had found their purpose. And the galaxy would never look at them the same way again.